Going back to, you know, big trends in the last 20 years and bring your own device and consumerization, um, if I take a step back, then for me, Steve Jobs and the iPhone introduction has been really instrumental in driving this. Had the iPhone not been there, we might have had a very, very different future. Not just in the way that we use smartphones, but on a much broader scale. What's your feeling about that?
No, I totally agree. I think that the iPhone is what brought in the consumerization of the enterprise and the consumerization of IT trend. Because before then, everybody had their BlackBerry. I mean, in this drawer over here, I still have a couple of my old BlackBerries, and I love my BlackBerries. But that was a very different experience than what you had once that iPhone was introduced. And in fact, the last company I worked for, you mentioned MobileIron. MobileIron existed before the iPhone, but what caused MobileIron to take off was as soon as the iPhone came out, the founders of MobileIron embraced, hey, the C-suite and enterprises are going to want to use their iPhone. There was no manageability built into the iPhone. Let's build that ourselves and go sell it on top of it. And they did that successfully and built a good business on top of it, of being able to bring consumerization into the enterprise. So I think Apple should get a lot of credit for starting that whole phenomenon and driving it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And well, obviously, if we think about the whole cloud movement, there's Microsoft Office 365, there's Salesforce, there's AWS for the infrastructure as a service. Is probably you can't really pinpoint it to one single thing. It's just the industry evolved towards it, and work anywhere is very much triggered by COVID. So privacy is something which is already going on. Do you think we'll have, or do we already have like the one compelling event that will trigger our future? Just like the iPhone did 15 years ago, 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think that yes and no. So let's excuse me. So let's take COVID as an example. So before COVID, there was an effort in the industry to replace your VPN with more modern ways of doing access, using things called software-defined perimeters, zero trust network access, secure access, secure edge. I mean, pick your analyst, they've got a way of talking about it. But it was basically a way of saying, hey, instead of creating a secure tunnel from your device over the internet back into the enterprise to go back out to the cloud to access your cloud applications, why not just set the policy and the encryption at a device and in the cloud so you don't have to backhaul it to the enterprise, right? Because this dynamic of not everybody attaching to the enterprise network was already happening. And so when COVID hit, it caused a lot more people to kick the tires of that approach. But the other dynamic that COVID hit, where actually it caused people to actually deploy more of their VPNs, was, hey, I'm not going to, because I don't have people going to the office. Because if you remember a year ago in March when people started going home, it wasn't like, hey, let's rethink IT quick, do this over the next weeks. People go home. It was like, hey, we already have a remote access solution. It's these legacy VPN concentrators that we've got in a closet over here. We're just going to have to go double the number of them because we've got twice as many people working from home. And that's what they did. So you saw when COVID hit, as just thinking about it in terms of, is COVID a big event that's going to accelerate this change? At its inception, it wasn't. Because take MobileIron as an example. We had a lot of customers, more of our customers using our on-premise software and a smaller percentage using our cloud software. When COVID hit, the people in the cloud were the best off because they had to dramatically increase the number of devices they were managing through MobileIron. But because they were in our cloud, they didn't have to do a thing. We scaled our cloud up automatically for them. Whereas our on-premise customers, which was the lion's share, they had to manually go install more of our software in their environment while everybody was being told to work from home. We had one customer that still used physical appliances. They had to procure physical appliances and go physically install them in their data center all during COVID. That was their answer. These on-premise customers would have loved to move to the cloud in the near term. They couldn't because of COVID. So the near term was more of the old. But what it did do was reinforce to all these customers that hadn't moved to the cloud yet, wow, I wish I was in the cloud when this happened. So coming out of COVID, you're seeing the amount of tire kicking and interest from a sales perspective of moving. So this is a long answer to say, I think COVID absolutely is a compelling event to get customers to move to replacing their VPN, thinking about remote access to their applications, to their working environment in a way that's far less friction, far easier for them to support, to scale up and down. That's going to happen. And so I do think that's happening, but at least for the first year, you also saw the uses for VPN vendors go off the roof, off the charts, I should say, because of that. I don't know if that made sense, but that was kind of one of the observations I had at MobileIron.